Hello everyone, and welcome to another Cartoon Galaxy rant. I'm Mars Moon, and I like to rant about cartoons. So if you're a big fan of the Ghostbusters, especially the animated series Ghostbusters, either the real Ghostbusters that aired in 1980s or the one that aired in the 1990s called the Extreme Ghostbusters, you're going to be very excited about this news that I'm about to reveal to you right now. And that is that there is going to be another Ghostbusters animated series coming out in 2027, which means that it's either in production now or sometime this year. So that's going to be pretty freaking awesome. Or is it? Now, unfortunately, there isn't a lot of details that have been released about this new animated series. There's no advertisements, posters, trailers, nothing yet. There isn't even a title. But there is one thing that has been released, and that is the names of the folks that are going to be behind the makings of this animated series. Mostly executive producers, and one particular name that seems to really stand out because they have multiple roles in this project. If you have watched some of my older videos, two in particular where I talked about the regular show Lost Tapes and the Garfield show, not the old Garfield show, but the new one that's going to come out, I think also in 2027. Even though we don't get a lot of details in terms of visuals or whatnot, looking at the names of the people behind the projects could still give us a bit of a hint if this is going to be something worth watching, or if there are some red flags that we need to really look into. So that's what I want to delve into in this video. But before I do, just a quick reminder, if you really like my work, please like and subscribe. Any subscription, like, whatever it is, it really does help the channel out. I also animate, so I have a lot of things if you're interested. Also, I have a Patreon. I've been working on updating that a bit with some behind the scenes stuff with also my animations and whatnot. Or if you just want to pop by, it's totally up to you. But I figure I just put it out there. So yeah, anyway, back to the video. So let's take a look at this new Ghostbusters TV series. Now, like I said earlier, there isn't a lot in terms of advertisements, trailers, whatever, but we do have a list of the executive producers that are going to be behind the making of this new TV series. And I'm going to list them right here. Okay, ready, go. So just fair warning, I probably will butcher some names. Except this one, because this name should be familiar to all of you. Dan Aykroyd is going to be one of the executive producers for this project. You probably know him as one of the Ghostbusters. He plays one of the Ghostbusters, but he also was responsible for the creation and writing and whatnot of the original Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 1 and 2. He also played a role in the newer Ghostbusters movies, some of the most recent ones being Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So, big name when it comes to Ghostbusters. I think his name might also be tied in with the real Ghostbusters animated series too, if I'm not mistaken. Another familiar name might be Jason Reitman. If you're not familiar with that name, he is in fact the son of Ivan Reitman, who also had a key role in the creation of the original Ghostbusters films, again, Ghostbusters 1 and 2. So you could figure Jason is just passing on the torch. And he had worked on, again, the newer Ghostbusters films, the Afterlife film and the Frozen Empire film. The other executive producers behind this are probably names that you might be familiar with, you might not be, but we have Ben Hibben, Elliot Kalin, Gil Keenan, and Amy Karp. So upon looking at the rest of these executive producers, they do have a broad resume. I always look at that because I find that to be kind of essential. If you're going to be working on any kind of a major project or something that's going to be very popular with viewers, you want to have people who are competent enough that they actually have done a lot of projects in the past, because it shows that there's a lot of experience under their belt. Another great thing about most of the people on this list is also, like Jason Reitman and Dan Aykroyd, they also had a role in the newer Ghostbuster films, being again Ghostbuster Afterlife and Ghostbuster Frozen Empire. So they have worked on Ghostbuster related stuff in the past, and that makes perfect sense if you're going to be an executive producer for a Ghostbuster related show. The only one who actually has a smaller resume, I would say, out of this list of executive producers is Amy Karp. So although she does have tie-ins with the Ghostbusters films, there's really not a lot of other projects she's worked on. I mean, she has worked on other projects, but just not, I think, as broad as the other people on this list. But she is listed on her LinkedIn as being a part of the development and production team of Ghost Corps. And if you're not familiar with that, it was basically a corporation created by, I believe, Dan Aykroyd and Jason Reitman back in 2015. And it was a means to expand on the Ghostbusters universe. So outside of the original Ghostbusters films, they wanted to make new films and new things, and they're doing it under this corporation of sorts. And they actually started their first project with the not-so-pleasant 2016 Ghostbusters film, which, if you guys may recall, was the Ghostbusters film that featured the all-female Ghostbuster crew. But this corporation started out with that and then moved on to other Ghostbusters projects. But now, the biggest person that I actually want to focus on outside of the list of all these people is actually Elliott Kalan, one of the executive producers of this new animated series. And the reason I want to focus on him is because he's not just listed as an executive producer, but according to the article that I read, he is also going to be a writer and showrunner for this series as well. What could I say about Elliott? He has a lot on his plate. I mean, he's done a lot of projects in the past. Usually when his name gets brought up in articles and interviews, a lot of the time it gets mentioned that he's a comedian, or he does comedy type material, and he wrote for Mystery Science Theater, not the old Mystery Science Theater, but I believe it was a newer Mystery Science Theater, which I think came out in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And he also wrote for The Daily Show. And that he wrote for till 2015. That is when Jon Stewart eventually left The Daily Show, and he eventually left with Jon Stewart. And when he left, then he moved on to the 2017 Mystery Science Theater. So those are the two big projects he usually talks a lot about and gets a lot of credit for. Besides that, a lot of the other projects that he had worked on, I mean, there are some cartoon-related projects, but looking at his IMDb, it looks like he's done a lot of sketch comedy type material. Though more recently, he's gotten into writing for comic books, most specifically Spider-Man, X-Men, and if you look at his X account, there's a lot of posts about him working on the Harley Quinn comics. He also did work on another type of comic. Called Maniac of New York, which, from what I've read, does have this sort of comedic undertones, but it is also pretty dark because, I mean, it is about this serial killer in New York. I can't say much else about it because, I'll be honest, I've never read these comics. I think it's like a series of comics. Unfortunately, looking at his IMDb, He is the only one out of the rest of the executive producers who had not written or worked for any of the Ghostbuster material. So, what does all this mean? What does this tell us about this new Ghostbusters TV series? Is it going to be good, or is it going to be meh? So, looking at everything so far that I had researched about all the different executive producers, including Elliott Kalan, who has a bigger role as an executive producer, writer, and showrunner, there are a few things that come to mind. One thing in particular, actually, that I didn't mention earlier is the fact that is this TV series going to be like the real Ghostbusters, where it focuses on the original Ghostbuster cast, or is it going to be something more like Extreme Ghostbusters, where it's like this new cast of Ghostbusters, which work alongside the original old Ghostbusters? And to that, if I had to guess, despite the lack of information about the show and the title, I think it's going to be more like the Extreme Ghostbusters, in the sense that I believe and this is just my opinion, this is just a hunch of mine, I could be completely wrong here, but I think this show has a higher chance of being in very close connection to the Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire films, only because the executive producers that worked behind those particular movies are the ones that are also working on this TV series. So it would only make sense that the TV series is going to focus on that young cast of newer Ghostbusters with, of course, the older original Ghostbusters. Does that mean it's going to be any good? It's hard to say. I mean, when I watched Afterlife, it was a good film. However, it was kind of a repeat of the original first film towards the very end, with just some new bits and pieces. But it literally, by the end of the film, it was Ghostbusters 1, which one could say is pretty damn lazy. And with Frozen Empire, I didn't watch it, unfortunately. I heard a lot of people have mixed reviews of it. So here we have folks that worked on this, and not just as producers. When they worked on Frozen Empire and Afterlife, some of them were directors or writers, and I guess producers at the time when they made it. So they had other various roles in these films. Now they're going to be executive producers for this TV series. The other maybe saving grace is this Elliott guy, because, you know, he didn't work on those films. He's kind of an independent outside of that. He is a comedic writer. And one of the things about Ghostbusters is it wasn't just about fighting ghosts. There was a sense of dark comedy to it. Even in the real Ghostbusters animated series, there was funny moments. I mean, a lot more funny moments, of course, because it was aimed for kids. But there was funny moments. But the thing also is that Ghostbusters can be dark too. It's a perfect balance of comedy with this kind of dark edge, because they're going after ghosts and also demons in a sense. The question is, if Elliott is one of the writers, can he also juggle dark stuff with the comedy? I mean, he has a big background in sketch comedy, but what about dark writing? And the only thing I could say that maybe he can hold that up is because he did this one comic, Maniac of New York, which by the looks of it seems to balance that comedy with a sort of dark side to it. And if he could use that in this Ghostbusters animated series, then it could actually work. That's my insight on this. But let me know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments below. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Take care and peace out.